Okay, welcome to the very first BitDevs radio hour. Here with Alex Lewin, I'm Stephen DeLorme. We're broadcasting live from ATL BitLab. That's Atlanta's Freedom Tech Bitcoin community space. How's it going?
Oh, it's going fantastic. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Oh, hold on one second. You heard the echo. That's because I was setting up the stream and then it was playing again. Audio issues. Okay, yeah, stoked to be here with you and this massive live studio audience, all here to learn about Bitcoin technical topics. Wow.
Incredible. I'm so excited to be here today. Stephen, can you explain what we're doing on the show today to the audience?
Well, there's BitDevs meetups in Atlanta, all around the world, in various different cities, for very good reasons. These are usually more, focused, closed conversations. Want room for people to be able to have the discussions in kind of frank, open, honest ways. Wanting to feel comfortable asking the quote unquote dumb questions. But there's also a cost to gating that, right? Not everybody gets to participate and learn about what's going on in Bitcoin technical development.
Yeah, the Chatham House rule is such a buzzkill.
I know, right? But we're going to talk about some stuff that's going on in Bitcoin right now, and if we have fun doing it, if you all have fun listening to this, we'll do it again. We just had a Socratic seminar here at BitDevs in Atlanta the other night. We're going to talk about some of the stuff we did talk about that night, some of the stuff we didn't get a chance to talk about. And I'll go ahead and say that, there's a lot of, technical content out there. If you're, very, very deep down the development rabbit hole, there's Bitcoin Optech, really great podcast that covers a lot of the latest stuff that's going on in Bitcoin Core dev. But that's also not for everybody, and so we're trying to kind of strike a balance here, strike a middle ground, be able to have the conversations about what's happening in Bitcoin, but hopefully keep it approachable for everybody.
Cool.
All right, where should we start today?
Let's look at our topic. So if anybody cares to look at our topics list yourself, you can go to atlbit.dev. That's where we're going to be drawing topics from. This is the same topic list that we use at our local BitDevs. So we're going to be rehashing and talking about some of the same things that we talked about at our local meetup.
And if you're just listening only, that's fine too. There is, we'll try and read out everything. So if you can't see the video, that's cool too.
Cool. Yeah, where do you want to start?
Well, let's see. Why don't we talk a little bit about some of the Bitcoin kernel stuff? We didn't get to linger on that probably as long as we would have liked to the other evening.
Cool. So Bitcoin kernel. For those of you who haven't been paying attention, Bitcoin kernel is one of the most important projects currently being worked on. And looks like 2 weeks ago, Fanquake acted and said soon we'll be running the Bitcoin kernel and was merged to master. So this is very new, a new thing being added to Bitcoin. Something that people often ask when they're learning about Bitcoin is, and that they're learning about the technicals. Something weird about Bitcoin is that there's only one implementation that people really run for Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin Core. The vast majority of Bitcoin uses Bitcoin Core. Like Ethereum or other projects, they have other implementations, but Bitcoin only has the one or forks of the one. Why is that? Why do we only have one implementation? The main reason is for security and safety and reliability is that if you have multiple implementations, or actually even just with one implementation, it's incredibly hard to engineer the system to not fork itself. We're having a massive distributed system, and it has to agree on the state. And if you have a bug, even just from version to version of the software, it can create chain splits. Trying to prevent chain splits across multiple implementations of the software is very, very difficult, very challenging. So in order to, avoid chain splits as much as we can, we have one implementation of Bitcoin.
I'll go ahead and make actually there, you will hear about other implementations, like one of the, popular ones is BTCD. So that is another implementation, but typically there's one main implementation that everyone uses. That's Bitcoin Core.
Yeah, I mean, it's like over 99% of the network is running Bitcoin Core or a fork of Bitcoin Core. So what is the kernel project? What if we could take all of the super sensitive, important code that prevents chain splits or make sure that we're on the same fork, and we could expose that and reuse it in other pieces of software? Like, what if we could build on the same core consensus module or the same, call it kernel of Bitcoin, and then we could build other pieces of software without having to worry about the most sensitive part. So that's effectively what the Bitcoin kernel project is doing. It's taking the consensus critical code and re-exposing it in a library. So you can build other software that does that uses the same transaction validation and block validation logic as Bitcoin Core without pulling in the entire software.
So what do you think this could look like, 10 years from now with, Bitcoin kernel becoming a more mature project? Just if we want to think a little bit sci-fi, what is the world of, being a Bitcoiner or running Bitcoin software look like with the existence of the Bitcoin kernel project being mature?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps we could have more implementations of Bitcoin that use the same consensus part of the code. I don't know. Do you have anything in mind? What's the future look like if we have multiple implementations? Just more software, better tooling, just better crafted software.
My thought would be, maybe we have a better way of running mobile Bitcoin nodes. Like, there's currently the Bitcoin Core app project that's going right now. It's kind of a, user interface project for Bitcoin that's happening in the Bitcoin design community. So it currently uses Bitcoin Core as its backend, I guess you would say. And there was a version of that has been compiled to run on Android, which is really cool. In theory, you could have like an Android tablet that syncs a Bitcoin Core node on it. Of course, having nodes is good for the decentralization of the network. But perhaps you could build a mobile node, like kind of a self-validating wallet that doesn't have like kind of the overhead of Bitcoin Core. I mean, I'm not a mobile developer necessarily, so I'm kind of just grasping for ideas here, but I'm imagining that there's probably ways that you might build, like let's say you were going to build a Bitcoin node from scratch to run on something like an Android device. You might build it in a slightly different way from the start than you would, building something like Bitcoin Core, which is primarily for like desktop and server environments. So perhaps that opens up the door for more innovation in like the mobile space. If you can, successfully implement the cores, validation logic and all that, but perhaps, package it in a way that's better for mobile.
Yeah, I agree. So this is also related to U3XO. If you've heard of U3XO, it's just more, it's like another project to make Bitcoin-like software, but in more ergonomic packages for other applications other than just running it as a server. So I think some projects that are leveraging U3XO are also using Bitcoin kernel. They're like the first adopters.
Oh, that makes sense. That's nice.
Yeah. Something else we had on the topics list was this new PR that was opened 4 days ago by the brilliant independent researcher Josh Doman, where he exposes a reusable pre-computed transaction data object in script validation using libkernel. So one thing that is really challenging, or one hard computer science problem that Bitcoin has to solve for, is how to make sure that transaction validation is cheap and that you're always able to that you're unable to craft a transaction that is hard to verify. You want all the transactions to be always verifiable. And one of the specific things that you have to solve for is preventing this thing called the quadratic hashing problem, or basically creating a transaction that requires you to just do a bunch of hashes or verify a bunch of signatures. So the solution for this problem is that you before actually validating the transaction itself, you look for all of the signatures and hashes that must be performed in the transaction. Then you pre-compute those hashes and basically cache the the hashes and then just reference the pre-hashes. So you don't rehash anything. You just have this like lookup table of hashes. So Josh created a PR that he created a PR2 lib kernel that allows you to put this pre-computed transaction data outside of the actual transaction verification process. So as a caller of this function, you could bring the pre-computed hashes and pass it in, and that's important for a project he's working on that relies on the Bitcoin kernel. So
very cool. Yeah, that was actually kind of like that reminded me of like another topic that we didn't hit the other night. I can't remember where because it's been a while since I looked at the full topic list, but it's like there was another topic on there that I had added from the Bitcoin Core kind of universe, and it was like going over kind of like a similar problem of like when you're trying to validate things, if you end up having to like revalidate things like over and over and over again, you end up just creating like this chain of inefficiency. Cool. So what else do you think? Anything else we should talk about on the kernel project?
no, I think that's a lot of kernel talk. Yeah, super
Okay.
exciting. This is merged, and hopefully in the next Bitcoin Core release, we'll be able to use the Bitcoin kernel from an actual cut release of Bitcoin Core.
All right. Where should we go next?
Maybe want to jump to everybody's favorite topic in Bitcoin. We can talk about filteroos.
Yeah, let's talk about filtering a little bit. You want to tee us up here?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. If you've been loosely following Bitcoin at all on Twitter or just in any of if you've been following Bitcoin at all for the past few months, you've probably noticed that there's been a somewhat contentious, spicy debate in Bitcoin about how to handle transactions with extra data attached. So some people call this spam. There are two camps that have emerged. The first camp is the filter camp, which thinks that Bitcoin software should try to prevent or to try to filter out transactions with extra data in them, even if they're consensus valid. We should try to detect if there's extra data that's stuffed in, call it maliciously, and filter them out before it gets into a block. The no filter camp, this gets mischaracterized sometimes. The no filter camp, for the most part, also agrees that these are spam transactions, but the no filter camp thinks that the filters are one, ineffective, and two, cause more problems than they solve. So we're better off just accepting the annoyance of spam and living with this thing that's ultimately like not a societal risk for a variety of reasons. They argue that they do more harm than good. So. This debate's been raging. Everybody's seen it. Initially, the debate was about what to do with Bitcoin Core. Like, should Bitcoin Core filter transactions, specifically at the mempool policy, like the transaction relay network? The filter side kind of lost this argument because the latest release of Bitcoin has relaxed the filters. So now the debate is shifting. It's no longer about what to do with Bitcoin Core. It's about what to do with Bitcoin. The only rational or the only logical thing that you can do after Bitcoin Core is allowing these transactions through. The only way that you can really push this further technically would be to fork the chain or to create competing software that forks the chain. So now we're talking about the reduced data temporary soft fork.
Yeah, and for those just listening, we have some links for that pulled up on screen, and I'll add a little more like color to some of what you just said. I think many brilliant technical minds were arguing that you could really only attack the problem of arbitrary data at the consensus layer from the very, very beginning. So it's kind of, for many people, not a surprise that we're having this discussion now in the Bitcoin community about like limiting this kind of data at the consensus layer, because many people just said this is what you have to do to begin with. It's the only viable way of actually making sure. It's like everybody can have their fences up around their node, so to speak. It just takes one person not running a fence for it to get through. So yeah, it's kind of unsurprising that we're now here. We've actually over the course of 2 BitDevs meetups in Atlanta discussed the reduced data temporary soft fork. And maybe you could open that one for us real quick. I don't want to drill into this one too deeply because I imagine that many folks in internet land have kind of already been following this. But effectively, this is a pull request by a user, Dathan Ohm, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. In terms of the document, one proposes, it's like trying to basically limit almost any type of arbitrary data you can imagine. So it's not only like limiting the size of the operturn. Actually, could you go to files change so we could just go through the actual text real quick?
Yeah, who is this guy? Do you know who this is?
I'm actually not familiar with this contributor's work.
Yeah, so notably, the contributor has no prior work. All of these are new accounts.
That's what I've heard.
Fresh off the boat.
Well, yeah, so welcome for the first time contribution. Yeah, I mean, let's just go up to some of these real quick here and like see if we can find op push data payloads and witness stack elements exceeding 256 bytes are invalid. Spending undefined witness or taproot versions are invalid. Witness stacks to the taproot annex invalid. Taproot control blocks larger than 257 bytes invalid. So, I mean, this is going to great lengths to look for any possible way that somebody could put arbitrary data on chain. So, why might this be a bad idea, Alex?
Well, some of the things that they're disabling that people are using are that people are using for spam are used for not spam too. So specifically op-if is, I think, the one that people are talking about the most is, in Bitcoin script, there's something called op-if that lets you have conditional statements in your Bitcoin script.
Can be used for inscriptions.
Yeah, it can be used for inscriptions, but it's also used for things like inheritance planning. Like if you have 3 keys or time has passed and a year has passed, you can only use 2 keys, something like that.
Yeah.
You could spend the keys. So disabling op-if altogether would break anybody's setup that's currently using op-if. They go on to explain that this would only apply to new Bitcoin, so they would just break future wallets setting this up, not existing wallets. They would still allow you to spend from addresses that use op-if. You just can't send to addresses with op-if. However, yeah.
And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and I think this was, some of these same ideas were like discussed in the kind of precursor to this, where Portland HODL was proposing on the mailing list to limit script pub key size. Like, there's this issue where like if a transaction is like pre-signed and like considered, it could be considered to be valid if mined. And you could also have another pre-signed transaction that spends from an unconfirmed pre-signed transaction, and I think a soft fork such as this would make that child unspendable. I think though it's just there's this larger conversation. I think it might be worth discussing the temporary nature of this that's in the title.
Yeah,
because like when it comes to this kind of proposal, it's like Bitcoin, we think of it as programmable money, right? And we're taking when we want to remove arbitrary data from the chain, we want to enforce that. We end up having to kind of cut back on much of the programmability aspects of it, and it's like, well, why did we bother building all that stuff to begin with if now we can't use it at risk of arbitrary data. Now, this is where it's good to note that this is posed as being a temporary soft fork, which, to my knowledge, I don't think there's really been something like this done in the past, where you could have a soft fork that you you fork the chain and then you change consensus rules back to what they were again.
Yeah, I mean, typically, like when we add in soft forks, like we want to do it forever, and like we're pretty confident that it's
Yeah,
a good idea. We don't say, okay, we're going to do it now and then fix it later.
yeah.
This is a new idea.
But it's like because the kind of narrative behind this is, oh, this is some kind of emergency. I disagree that this is an emergency, but that's the narrative at least.
Yeah, what can you articulate what the emergency is about, or like why they think it's an emergency?
I mean, this emergency is this kind of narrative that what if somebody inscribed illegal content onto the Bitcoin blockchain?
Yeah, specifically the worst content imaginable, the worst content that anybody can think
The
of.
worst content that anybody can think of. I'm not even going to say it. But like, that's there's not really this impending legal threat that this is gonna if somebody puts this content on Bitcoin, it's gonna like shut down Bitcoin or like force node operators to shut down. More so, we actually unfortunately don't really have a way of knowing that this kind of content isn't already there. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's already some reprehensible stuff. Like, I've heard that there's some like gore images like very early on in Bitcoin that people publish. But that's not great. But then also as like as an art, as a performance art, some of the anti-filter people inscribed like computer viruses. Like, did you see this?
ooh,
So like they put like actual malware, like real malware, and then they put it in Bitcoin transactions just to show like, yep, look at it, it's there, it's not breaking anything. Like we're distributing malware to all the Bitcoin nodes, yet nobody cares and it's not affecting anything.
yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. It's
Anyhow, so like this is the state of reality is that they're taking it further, and yeah, we don't need to rehash the whole debate.
Yeah,
But
I think it might be more funny to get into some of like the newer stuff that's going on there because
yeah.
at least we had to talk about it at BitDevs to kind of go over what in our usual monthly cadence what's happened in the past month, but there's been all kinds of I was going to completely drop the topic at the last Socratic seminar until like new kind of funny stuff started popping up. I mean, we had already discussed at another BitDevs meetup, Peter Todd etched the reduced data temporary soft fork proposal into a Bitcoin transaction, into several Bitcoin transactions, constructed it in a way that would actually be compatible with the BIP. So Alex is pulling that up on screen right now. We can see that it's split up, uses op push data. But yeah, made it work. So now, yeah, the tweet says, just in case any dastardly core devs try to censor BIP 444, there's now an immutable copy etched permanently into the blockchain.
Brilliant. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Thank goodness.
And who did that tweet come from?
Mononaut.
Mononaut.
Yeah.
But but then in like like the days prior to our last Socratic seminar, we saw the launch of Ordinauts, and Alex is pulling this up. This is a post from T4T5 introducing Ordinauts, magic internet JPEGs powered by Bitcoin knots.
Yeah, this is so funny.
Yeah, we're gonna click into this GitHub link here and see what it is. I mean, the basic gist of it is he's found a way to do something akin to inscriptions, but in a way to where it'll be compatible with and relayed by knots.
Yeah, so like how ordinals work today, you run this like extra piece of software called Ord that sits beside Bitcoin Core, and Knots is a project, is a fork of Bitcoin Core to try to make it impossible to do stuff like Ord is doing. So he just like slightly changed the Ord protocol and calls it Ordi Knots, so that you can use literally a Knots node as the sidecar to publish transactions with Ordi Knots. So even like the bespoke software, it's not really bespoke. Even the alter software that's supposed to stop spam is still going to be relaying this spam. Just I guess that's just more fodder to the argument that the effort's futile.
Yeah, and then somebody else posted what is it, BPub, and I was having trouble finding like things just escalate so quickly on Twitter that it's kind of difficult to follow the source sometimes. So I had difficulty finding the source for BPub, but there's now yet another arbitrary data embedding scheme, and I think where Alex is going to pull up the tweet for this one.
This.
Yeah, so they made a reveal. So Proof of Cash posted it. He has a Python script in the tweet. Apparently, if you run that, you can actually, reveal the data that's stored on chain. So we now have another arbitrary data encoding scheme. And I think, if we want to take this to funny land real quick, why don't we go back and find Udi's tweet? Believe it or not, T4T5 spent 7 months on this, and the Taproot Wizards company invested $6.8 million into research and development, leading to this breakthrough that allows us to bypass Luke Dash Jr.'s retarded fork proposal and put penises on chain anyways.
That's really noble of him to, push his company's mission, to stop these attackers of his perfect project.
It might be worth scrolling down though and just seeing some of the kind of reactions. Or no, actually, let's go back to the Socratic list. This was probably I probably should have been driving the laptop for this part, but we only have so much desk space, so we're making do. Mechanics response to Ordinauts. I bring this up just because it's just kind of interesting how these conversations evolve. He's kind of posting the screenshot of Udi talking about spending nearly $7 million to try and create Ordinauts. Says, well, if you can do that, then spammers can just ... kind of rehashing this I guess argument from the let's not worry about the non-filter side of the debate. That's like, well, if you add a filter, spammers can just do this. And I think if I'm reading his post correctly, he's kind of trying to point out like, well, we caused them to spend nearly $7 million in 7 months. And if you scroll down, you see, and your view of Twitter might be different, but Proof of Cash is posting the definition of sarcasm. And on my version of Twitter with like the people I follow, it's so interesting. Like here's from Beauty on, this is super interesting. Would it not be possible to scan a block just before it's committed to check for these and then reject them before it's committed? If they can be technical like this, then surely they can be detected before being set in stone, asking for a friend. So some people seem unaware. Some people are like, interpreting this as serious. Other people are interpreting this as a joke. And this is kind of like the postmodern world we live in where, two different groups can look at the same piece of information and come away with entirely different conclusions based on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Just large swaths of people don't get the joke. Udi is saying that, oh, look how hard we worked at breaking your filters. Like it was really tough, but we figured it out anyways.
I don't think you need $7 million to,
I mean, I'm guessing it wasn't $7 million. I'm guessing it was an afternoon of hacking.
Yeah, that sounds about right. A week tops, but probably an afternoon of hacking.
Yeah, but Udi chummed the waters and looks like Mechanic took the bait.
Yeah. So, and it's getting to the point now where, we have some PRs linked on our BitDevs topics page as well for Lua-based transaction filtering. There's a draft PR that's open to Bitcoin Knots right now that would use Lua scripts to be able to. My understanding of this is that you want to be able to kind of dynamically define what gets filtered out without needing to recompile the software every time. As a result, that's why it's handled using these Lua scripts, because the kind of configuration that would handle how stuff gets filtered wouldn't need to be like, you wouldn't need to recompile a new version of Knots or even really cut a new release anytime there is a new filter. You could just update the Lua script.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can like live swap filters.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Lua is a popular language for configuration. So there's like Minecraft mods that you need to write Lua. NeoVim, the configuration. If you're going to like configure your NeoVim setup, you must use Lua. So Lua is really popular. It's probably a good choice, assuming this is software you do want to build.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the advantage of that, if you did want to filter, I don't personally want to. If you did want to filter, it saves you from being able to, needing to recompile. In theory, it enables you to be more nimble. What would be some of the downsides to this approach?
I mean, that it doesn't work.
You just mean that because they'll come up with another way to bypass it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It becomes a game of just outsmarting the filters, and then it's cat and mouse. But I'm guessing this is one of those things that you could probably prove that there's like an infinite number of ways to, like literally an infinite number of ways. It's like a Zeno's or a Cantor's diagonal proof thing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
It's like a thing that you can prove that there are, even if you list a countably infinite number of numbers, you can prove that there's a uncountably infinite number of numbers that aren't in your list. So you can prove that you can always come up with more numbers. No matter how long your list is, you can always come up with more numbers. So I'm guessing it's something similar where you could, no matter how much Lua code that you write to filter things out, you could always find provably a new way to get around the filters.
That's some number theory that's too big for my brain to handle. But I think I get where you're coming from, and let's dig into that a little bit, because I think again, it's like the same information is out here on the web, and you have two different groups of people interpreting it entirely different ways. What would you say to somebody who's like, no, this is actually really good, Alex, because you see what's happening here is we're putting the pressure on for arbitrary data, and now we're forcing them to come up with new ways of embedding arbitrary data, which we will then attempt to filter, which means that this is good because we're accelerating the creation of new arbitrary data embedding mechanisms, which helps us find them and then filter them until eventually we'll completely run out of ways to embed arbitrary data.
Yeah, if I had to steel man, like what I would say is like, even if you can't stop it permanently, it still practically would kill any protocol that embeds arbitrary data, because you can't have a reliable protocol if it's constantly having to change. So just maybe you won't stop all of spam, you'll just stop organized spam. Like you'll bust, you're not going to stop petty crime, you're going to stop organized crime, something like that. And frankly, like that probably actually does make sense. That works. Yeah, like if your goal is to filter transactions out of the mempool, this is probably the way to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not to indicate my support for the PR. It's I think you shouldn't do it for other reasons, but.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it gets back to the difference that we spoke about earlier between filtering at the mempool level versus at the consensus layer. If you want to do it at the mempool layer and you want to run Lua script on your own node, and that's totally within your rights, just run the software. Having said that, it might keep it out of your mempool. It's not going to keep it out of the mempool of a miner that is incentivized to mine it. You would have to make those changes at the consensus layer. And if we want to do them at the consensus layer, we risk all these other things that we might need that programmability for.
Yeah. So to be clear, you definitely cannot do this at the consensus layer. Because if you do this at the consensus layer and people disagree on what the filters are, then you have chain splits.
Yeah, exactly.
So like the only place this makes sense is the policy layer, like just how your node transmits transactions. And frankly, like I actually do think it would kind of, if everybody used this, it might stop the transactions from being propagated. But I think that the negative externalities that this causes, mainly for mining centralization, is obviates any benefits, or like it trumps any benefit that you would get out of stopping the spam.
I mean, I think the darkest timeline imaginable for this would be you imagine that the Lua script gets wide adoption, everybody likes it, and it's like, well, you need to keep your Lua script constantly updated with the latest spam prevention techniques. So you have kind of like a trusted source you get that Lua script from. Kind of like how people are always pointing to unpackage.com/jQuery/latest or whatever, just kind of like always pointing to the latest version, and you just get whatever the CDN gives you. If everyone's just like pointing to the same, the same, updated, like filter runner, and then eventually that source, becomes compromised or whatever. or yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can spin that into a dark scenario. However, I don't anticipate that happening. I don't. I guess we'll see. I don't really think there's a huge amount of appetite among Bitcoin node runners to have custom filtering scripts. There clearly is some, or because people are building this, but I don't think it's. I don't personally think it's the kind of thing that would become widespread among Bitcoin node runners.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of it's like that one Elon quote, or that's it's like the fatal flaw, or like the most common problem of a very competent engineer is to try to over optimize something that simply should not exist. Yeah. So it's like you can like it's really hard to realize that like you shouldn't solve the problem. You should just like cut the problem out. Yeah.
Question requirements.
Yeah. So we can bike shed and come up with a great system for this, even though it should not exist.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, cool. Should we pivot to something else now? We've kind of talked about filtering and dicks on chain for a bit now.
No, I think we should talk about filters for another 3 hours.
It's the filter show.
Let's talk about.
You want to tell us what happened in El Salvador?
Yeah. Well, first, to tee up this stuff is Bitcoin's price is tanking. What's up with that, Stephen? Why are we all poor now?
Bitcoin's dying again.
Yeah, it's a big bummer. We're like at 80K or something, or just about 80K. We're all poor again. So yeah, Bitcoin's down basically. This is natural. The best rationale or the best explanation for why Bitcoin is down is that all of tech is down. All of tech is pretty bearish right now. People are thinking about, is this going to be the start of the recession? Is this going to be a collapsing of the balloon of the Mag 7 tech stocks? And Bitcoin is more speculated on than the rest of them. So Bitcoin is going to be affected by this negative sentiment even more so than the stocks are. So Bitcoin is a front runner often for larger macroeconomic changes. So Bitcoin's down because everything is bearish, but not to worry. One article just to talk about this specifically is that investors pull a record $500 million out of BlackRock's flagship Bitcoin ETF in one day. So this is a record. We've actually, since the Bitcoin ETFs launch, the spot ETFs launch, we have not seen this downturn. So this is the first. Call it like bearish time. Any bearish signal since the ETFs popped up. So I wonder if the ETFs are actually going to exacerbate the downturn because it's now so much easier to get rid of your coinage.
Oh yeah, it's like you just sell it on the public markets, basically.
Like you don't even have to log into your exchange. You can just go in your Schwab portfolio and just hit sell.
Yeah, you don't have to like send. It's not like the process of a hodler taking it out of cold storage and sending it to an exchange and then selling it. It's just already there.
Yeah. And it's also like people are used to moving their money around between stocks and between ETFs all the time. So it's very easy just to move.
Or they're used to a money manager or somebody like that doing it for them. Like they're used to having kind of like a managed 401k or something like that. And, there's somebody in the background kind of rebalancing things and moving things around.
Yeah. So this is all sad. We're all poor again. However, there's good news. In Bukele we trust. Bukele is taking advantage of the opportunity. He tweeted "Hua" and a screenshot of El Salvador smash buying 1,000 more coins, $100 million roughly into Bitcoin, and there's now this quite sharp spike in the balance graph. They had about 6,000 coins, now they have 7,000 and some change. Close to 8,000.
We got a comment at the Socratic seminar the other night that, wondering if that was really truly the case, something to do with the, IMF loan and if they, were allowed to buy Bitcoin anymore. Were you able to figure anything out about that?
Yeah, so or at least day of, I was like, oh, that does sound right. Maybe they just moved it around. But then saw this other tweet that kind of confirmed that they actually bought it because the Bitcoin office of El Salvador, the official government account, tweeted that El Salvador bought the dip. So it seems pretty clear that yeah, they actually did smash by, maybe either going around IMF or against their wishes, or they just yeah, found a way to do it that didn't violate their sanctions.
What a time to be alive.
Incredible. So we should all follow in Bukele's footsteps and smash by and buy more Bitcoin. If only I had $100 million to spend.
If only we had, an awesome, Bitcoin exchange to, sponsor BitDevs Radio Hour. Then anytime news like this happened, I could be like, log on to insert your platform here and smash by.
Exactly. We should start an exchange.
Totally.
Some other like nice news is that despite Bitcoin being down, because of the Square launch, Square recently launched the ability for any merchant to accept Bitcoin if you have a Square terminal. BTC Maps is an aggregator of merchants that accept Bitcoin, and they announced that they've added their 1,000th Square merchant today. This was a few days ago, and 1,500 or so in the backlog. So yeah, despite the price action of Bitcoin, yeah, signals have never been more bullish.
And you can actually, if you're a Cash App user in the US, you can actually see that map directly in Cash App.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
BTC Maps actually uses this thing called OpenStreetMap under the hood. So OpenStreetMap is like this, kind of like the wiki of mapping data. You can get an account with OpenStreetMap and, just submit metadata. And like, there's all kinds of metadata fields that you can add when you add locations on OpenStreetMap. So there's just, I think btcmap.org just basically looks for the mapping locations with like Bitcoin related metadata in them. And so like when I went to the Cash App, like spend your Bitcoin section in the app, I realized that it was using all of the same data points that I see on btcmap.org in the Atlanta area. So
That's cool.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah, I've been meaning to like look at OpenStreetMap. So it seems like you could have a bunch of cool hackathon projects using that data.
Yeah.
All right. So El Salvador bought the dip. We're all buying the dip.
Yeah. Okay, should we get into, we got about, 15 or so minutes, unless we want to really, go on for a long time. I think, should we talk about the BIP3 stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, before our government sanctioned block of radio time is up and
Yeah,
Bitcoin radio hour needs to conclude.
Yeah, broadcasting over the radio waves, it's really expensive. It requires a ton of electricity to get the signal out that far. This video that you're watching is actually an AI generated video. So we are taking the audio and piping that, into a, basically a speech to text, model. Then we're taking the output of that and funneling that into a video generation model. So this is all being generated live while you're watching it. We're not even in this room. So yeah, let's talk about BIP3 for a little bit. Yeah, I heard a little mouth sound. Did you want to tee this up?
Sure. Okay, so some background. The first two BIPs are Bitcoin improvement proposals.
Oh, I have a question.
Shoot.
What's a Bitcoin improvement proposal?
Bitcoin improvement proposals are proposals to improve Bitcoin. They are a set of documents that describe various changes to Bitcoin. It's just a way to formalize a suggestion to change Bitcoin so that people can have a debate before actually building it into Bitcoin. So yeah, there's both technical, there's non-technical, there's semantic BIPs. So everything, if you want to have a formal proposal to change Bitcoin, you write a BIP. So the first two BIPs and now the first three BIPs are describing the process of handling BIPs. They are self-referential BIPs. So for the past several years, we've been using BIP2. Our BIP1 is very old. Then it was replaced by BIP2. And now, over the past year or so, the main editors of the BIPs, the people that actually approve these proposals and allow people to submit the proposals and say if it's up to like the quality standard and do like they filter the spam ones. The people doing this has changed. So now Merch is leading this effort. He's one of the people that have been anointed as BIP editors, and he's definitely personally taking on the vast majority of the workload. So he has written up an updated BIPs process that is now getting debated on, and it's reaching its conclusion. So at this point, BIP3 has received over 600 comments on GitHub and has been discussed multiple times, and he's ready for it to close.
Yeah, and specifically, so Merch posted to the mailing list recently here, and that's what we're pulling up on screen here. The title is Motion to Activate BIP3. So what would it mean to actually activate BIP3? Well, if you click that first link in his message, we can see this pull request here. And in the files changed, you'd think it would just be a single BIP, but there's actually 190 files
Oh my
changed.
God.
Yeah, and so what this means is the process changes that are outlined in BIP3 it's a lot of stuff to do with like how comments are formatted, how authors are formatted. There's a ton of stuff in here, but it's like a huge overhaul. As such, all of the old documents, need some of their like metadata fields changed. Like just one simple example. Previously it said author. Now it says authors. A little more semantic because I think we're looking at like this might be BIP9 and it's like, well, obviously it's Peter Woolley, Peter Todd, Greg Maxwell, Rusty Russell. It's not author. And actually, if you go back to the previous screen, the conversation BIP, you can click. Oh no, sorry, go back. If you click updates to existing BIPs, should this BIP be activated, this basically explains kind of this is the part of BIP3 that actually explains a lot of the things that change. So they've kind of streamlined a lot of the types. The comments URI and comment summary are removed. And if you're curious to dig into the why of this, there's a thing at the bottom of this document that's just called the rationale, and it goes into pretty good detail on each one of these things about why it's changed. And it's very much just about the procedural nature of actually discussing, debating, and deploying these things. For example, they wanted to stop listing software projects that implement this BIP because it was really just becoming kind of an annoyance to people. Like I think the way it was described in there is it was just kind of becoming an annoyance to maintainers or people who star and subscribe to the repo because they're constantly getting notifications about some project being like, ooh, I support this BIP. And sometimes those are like good, serious projects. Other times they're more test or experimental or perhaps of dubious quality. And it wasn't really like super useful because it just kind of created like more information that needed to be maintained and kept up to date. And so they're now recommending that for if you run a wallet or a software project, you list the BIPs that you support on your website instead of adding a comment about your project in the BIP itself.
Yeah, I had no idea that was part of the BIPs process. I'm surprised it's taken this long for them to get rid of that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just a ton of stuff in here that's just more like quality of life stuff. I think though that there is something that is probably of interest maybe to the like broader Bitcoin community, and we can get to this on the mailing list post from Merch. And I'd like to scroll down. Let me just see if I can find what I want. He's getting a lot of positive, affirmative feedback on here. I want to reference this comment from David Harding. And there is one, in addition to all the just kind of procedural stuff in BIP3, there is part of it that says BIP submissions should not be generated by AI or LLM, and if you use AI in creating your BIP, you need to say it. And I want to actually read some of what David said because I think he's pretty articulated his point pretty good. I strongly disagree with this change. If I were to begin working on a new BIP today, I would use AI throughout the process. I'd ask it to help me create a to-do list of what should go in the BIP. I'd ask it to create a draft based on existing BIPs, my to-do list, and whatever other work products I had, for example, prototypes. I'd then ask it to help me refine the document until I was satisfied. I would, of course, review every word of the BIP draft before submitting for consideration and ensure that it represented the highest quality work I was able to produce, but the ultimate work would be a mix of AI and human writing and editing. I think considerate use of AI would be even more valuable for people who are less comfortable with writing technical English language documents than I am. For example, non-native literates, people with disabilities that make text that make text input difficult, and those who recognize that they're bad writers. The PR forbidding AI doesn't go into any detail about its motivation, although it references a previous discussion where a low-quality bit PR was opened using mostly AI-generated content. So I'll kind of cut it off there. I think we probably get Dave's point at this point, but David, he's kind of a veteran technical documentation writer. That's kind of like one of his specialties.
He's still an editor of Optech, right?
Yeah, I think actually I'm not sure on that, but he's contributed to Optech. He was a co-author on the recent Mastering Bitcoin. Incredible track record writing technical documentation, and not just for Bitcoin. I'm sure with other open source projects as well. So that was kind of an interesting remark from him that we have two very smart technical people kind of on different sides of this AI and using LLMs issue.
Yeah, I think it's bike shedding.
You mean David's comment or the use of the LLMs thing?
I think this line is bike shedding. Like I kind of agree with this what he's saying, but like I kind of think it's like a kind of dumb semantic argument. Like the BIPs submissions may not be generated by AI LLM. I think that like you could just reword that to like BIPs should be like high quality and not like e.g. Obvious AI slop, something like that.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing. I mean, that's the funny thing is that it's like should you just say like it needs to be high quality, or should you say that it needs to be well thought out? Because where this is coming from with regards to like AI content and BIPs is I've heard people talking about this at meetups and stuff. Like if we wanted you to submit. If we wanted you to come up with ideas for improving Bitcoin with AIs, we would ask the AIs ourselves. Right? Like there's like I don't think anyone in this technical crowd like is necessarily like bearish on AI or doesn't think that AIs are valuable or useful and all these kinds of things. I think as technical people we all agree that we can use AI to speed up workflows, and there's certain things that they're good at and certain things that they're not good at. And when it comes up to coming up with like novel ideas for how to improve the Bitcoin protocol, I just don't think we're quite there yet. Though we may get there eventually, but I don't think we're there yet. And having said that, you can definitely use an AI for like really, really good things, like as David's pointing out, like if you as the smart Bitcoin engineer have an idea for how something should be built and a good rationale and justification in your mind for why it should be built a certain way, you can articulate that and use the AI to help you write it better, and use that as a kind of tool, as and to borrow from Steve Jobs, like a bicycle of the mind. But it's not. It doesn't. You shouldn't be using that AI necessarily to come up with the ideas. And we have seen a problem, and I've witnessed this myself before, where people will come up with these AI-generated ideas. Like, I think we should have, I think we should have this feature. And I've never written a line of code, but I think it could be a cool idea. So let me ask the AI, and the AI is like, "Sure, that's a really great idea. Would you like me to make you a protocol document?"
Yeah, and then it expounds on like a 20-page document describing all the details of your bad idea.
And then you go and ask people for feedback, and everyone's like, "Wow, that's 20 pages. I'm going to read that like maybe next week." And then and then if somebody does criticize the idea, it'll be like the person, and I've seen this in like in discussion forums before, where someone will respond, someone will criticize, "Well, why did you make this decision? I'm curious if you could help me understand why you architected your protocol in this way."
And then they say, "Oh, the bot wrote that."
Or they'll respond with like I was looking at one recently where it was a screenshot of like a chat GPT comparing their protocol with another protocol. So they couldn't even be bothered to answer the question themselves, which and this is where the problem lies, is that someone who thinks they can use the AI to like not only come up with new ideas but also to help them defend their ideas, they can generate content way faster than anyone else can. So they can just be like, it takes one sentence of typing to be like, can you defend this part of your idea? It takes even less time to generate like 3 pages worth of essays that somebody has to respond to.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me like directionally it makes me think of like PhD defenses. Like when you're getting a PhD, like one of the important parts is like defending your work in front of like criticism. It's like if anybody proposed like, oh, can I use my LLM to help me defend my PhD? It's like obviously not. It's like the point of the defense is not to know if the PhD is good or not. It's to see if you can defend it. So like, yeah, I mean, this seems like a conflict. It's a philosophical conflict between the idea of BIPs being like the purpose of the BIP is to like find good ideas, or it's to evaluate somebody's ideas. Like, it's not; those aren't exactly the same thing, right? Like, it's not just to find ideas, like to mill through ideas and to exhaustively search for ideas. It's or yeah, maybe it's either that or it's to have a place for people to have ideas and then a forum to defend your ideas. Like, so I don't know. I don't think this has really been articulated before.
Yeah, no, you're right. That is a good point. It is the difference between finding ideas versus defending ideas, proposing and then defending ideas.
Yeah, this is the same debate as you have like with like AI generated code. It's like, should you allow it? It's like, well, I think when we had this debate at my company, like the result is like, yes, it should be allowed, but the burden, the responsibility of authorship and the responsibility of quality falls on the author. So like you're allowed to use it, but you're basically when you submit something generated by AI, you're saying it's yours. So if you submit bad code that was generated by AI, nobody cares that it was the AI. It's as if you wrote terrible code. So yeah, it's just a matter of like taking responsibility for your writing. And if it's obvious that somebody is putting in low efforts and putting bad quality, then we should close their PR. So
yeah, that's that's the thing. I think ultimately that's I think it's going to boil down to. I mean, I don't think that that line necessarily is going to stop people from using AIs and their BIPs and that's fine. It's the ultimate goal is just that we want people going to the BIPs repo, I think, with good quality ideas. Or, we just that's the core thing. We don't want to, it's open source. You don't want to waste the time of like open source project maintainers with, like burdensome review. Like you don't want to wait. Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling to articulate this, but you don't want to waste the time in an open source project with, getting maintainers to review stuff that hasn't been thoroughly thought out. There's only 24 hours in a day. And, you want open source maintainers to be spending their time reviewing quality pull requests, quality ideas, and, define quality. Yeah, I guess it's
it's impossible it's impossible to be very like academically rigorous about defining this. Like it's a very fluffy thing. It's intent is a big part of it. Like if you have good faith and you're using AI, then you're probably gonna have a lot more leniency than somebody that's bad faith and using AI.
Yeah.
So I think it's like basically we have to say something that like communicates the call it like the soul of what they're trying to say, and then we should move on and realize that it's a fluffy thing that's going to require some judgment.
Yeah, it is, and that's the thing. It's fluffy and going to require some judgment, and that's fine by me. So
cool. Yeah, we're slightly over the hour. Do we want to close, or do we want to? There's a couple of other things on the agenda.
I think if there's a couple other things you want to hit, let's go for it. Maybe we could go for maybe another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, sounds good. One thing on this topic that we were looking at is a write-up on Bitcoin Core's public roadmap. So this is kind of related to the filters discussion, but one outcome of the filters discussion is that there's been a lot more scrutiny on how Bitcoin Core operates. So people are asking like, oh, who's making these decisions and how do people organize? So people are posing these questions, often in somewhat of an antagonistic way. However, the questions are being asked publicly, and as a result, the people that are contributing to Core and the people that are helping Core organize are trying to respond to the best faith as they can. So yeah, somebody here asks, where's the public roadmap for Bitcoin Core? And has a long description talking about how it's opaque and it's not clear. And then Schmitty, or Mike Schmidt, who's an editor, or he leads Brink, and he's an editor of the Optic newsletter. He responded in detail, describing all of the different ways that Bitcoin Core organizes itself, such as working groups and tracking issues for different projects and in-person meetups with the notes published. So if there's a silver lining to all of the filteroo stuff, despite it taking a lot of effort for people to deal with, I think it's causing people to ask like legitimately good questions and then learn about the process and how these things work. Like the outcome of this is now we have like a great write-up about how Bitcoin Core operates. I think if you were on the inside and like if you worked with Bitcoin Core, maybe you knew this, but like I had never seen a write-up that described all of these things in detail. Like I had heard of some of these things, but I think it's very cool. And so the outcome is that people are actually learning. And the guy that even posted the original post said, this is a great post. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is, if there's a silver lining, that's got to be it. I mean, the thing about this is, Bitcoin is open source, and you can get involved. And I think that the unhealthy option is, if you don't like as a user, you don't like some functionality of the software. The unhealthy option is to make threats and behave aggressively and meanly towards Bitcoin Core contributors. The healthy way is to take it as an opportunity to learn about how the software works, about how the protocol works, and how the open source process works. Because you can get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest tragedy of the filter thing is like call it like erosion of like trust or respect for Bitcoin Core. Like they're trying, from my perspective, it seems like they're trying their best to be open and honest and work in public and accept feedback from the public. But I think their reputation for a lot of people has been tarnished, because of this debate and their like perceived mistakes and how they acted during the debate. Nobody's perfect, but I think over time, history will absolve them of their sins, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think any sins were committed, but that's.
I mean, we could talk more. I think arguably, if they maybe if some of the people, if the communication was organized at the beginning, I think a lot of this blow up could have been avoided. But
yeah, I mean, we could honestly probably do a whole episode just on debating the structure of these things. I think
we can armchair quarterback Bitcoin Cores.
Yeah, I mean that's like a whole thing. Cool. Anything else spicy we should?
Maybe two more things. First, Coinbase launches regulated ICO platform. This is interesting. So Coinbase launches a public token sales platform with the U.S. access with this one issuer as their first token. I thought ICOs were over. I thought that nobody was ICOing anymore because they were really freaking illegal to have these like ICOs that raise money for companies. But it looks like Coinbase has done the hard work to figure out how to execute these in a compliant way. So, hey, maybe we'll see a new wave of ICOs getting launched that we can pump and dump.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So who knows? Who knows if these go well? But I thought that was noteworthy.
I mean, based on your read of this, was there what does one have to do to be eligible for this? Is this just any rando can go on Coinbase and launch?
No. So it's going to be a very selective process. I think in this article it says somewhere that they're planning on launching roughly one per month. So it's going to be from supposedly like legitimate operations. yeah, I think it's interesting that yeah, they note that like this is only possible because of the new administration. Like, yes, because the current administration is more friendly to crypto. They think that they can get away with this. Yeah, I mean, as Bitcoiners, or at least personally, like I can. I don't like this. I think it's scary to have these token launching platforms. It seems like a recipe to separate untrained retail investors from their money. Just like the same criticisms of ICOs that have existed since they started. But
Well,
yeah.
there are platforms where you could participate in IPO, I guess, right?
I mean, you have to go through regulated bodies, submit a ton of financials. You go through like a legitimate bank, and there's a lot of due diligence, and you have to be approved by, I think it's the SEC.
To buy an IPO.
No, to launch an IPO.
That's what I mean. But to buy one as just Joe Schmo,
Correct, but the launching part is the part that you should
Yeah.
regulate, not the purchasing part.
yeah.
So
Are you arguing that there's not as much due diligence for this ICO process as there is with IPOs?
yeah, I think that's yeah, I think it's somewhat undeniable. Like most ICOs are launched at like the seed stage of the company.
Yeah.
So they're going a public offering and raising money from the public for a company that does not really exist yet, or
Yeah.
for a product that's not built, to fund the development, which is very different than going public, which is where you have a large company or you have an existing company and you're just you're selling off shares of this like established business.
Yeah. I was just curious because it sounds like it's all up to Coinbase's discretion about if the company is legitimate or not. But
Correct.
yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a difference. When Coinbase had their IPO, they were already a functioning, established company, and that's just kind of like the next stage in your company's growth. It's kind of like, well, should we do whatever stage of growth your company's at? Should we go for a Series C or should we go for an IPO? Right? It's like what kind of fundraise is the appropriate next measure, going private or going public. Whereas, yeah, like that's a lot of the issue with the ICOs is like a lot of them just didn't have products yet.
Yeah. So like
Most of them never had products.
yeah, I found an article, or I found a quote. So, unlike first come first served sales that fail to reach a project's real community, our token sale design prioritizes the many over the few. So they're acknowledging the problems with ICOs as they see it, and they're suggesting that their platform is going to fix some of these issues. I'm skeptical. Who knows? Maybe ICOs are going to become cool again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a good state of affairs would be, well, if people do want to do that kind of crap, then it provides a way to do it where it's like, it's not just like some rando on the internet launching an ICO.
Yeah, it's
and
not pump that
disappearing.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that they're not disappearing with the money to Mexico or something. It's like someone who's actually presumably trying to start a company. The bad side to that is that I think it could promote investment in things that are not like viable companies to actually grow, right? Like there's a whole, like when you're trying to choose, like I think as an investor whether or not to invest in a startup or not, you have to actually consider if this company has the capability to grow. And that's not just like, does the founder sound inspiring? It's like, do they actually have the team to pull this off? And then like for whatever product they're trying to build, like what is the total addressable market for this? So you have to consider all these things. And I don't necessarily know that with this just kind of like casual model of like, oh, we're going to do a startup and we just want to try and raise money this way instead of through the kind of traditional investing route. I'm not sure that that's going to lead to like great outcomes out there, or that these startups are going to be successful, but I might be proven wrong.
Yeah, I think the right mental model, if you're thinking about purchasing tokens from an ICO, is that you're effectively doing a Kickstarter campaign. You're giving people money for nothing, and then they're going to promise to return you some value at a future date. But there's no obligation for them to do so. These products don't exist yet. Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
Or what you're really hoping is that the token that you bought becomes worth more, because as their company does stuff, then the token becomes worth more or whatever.
Yeah. So they might have some Rube Goldberg machine that causes the price to increase, but like ultimately, you're putting faith in something that does not exist. and you should not think of it as stock. I've had this argument with people on Twitter before. Of like, it's like, oh, like what's the difference between like raising money through tokens versus raising money through equity? It's like they're basically the same thing, and it's there's a subtle difference between raising money with equity versus tokens. Is that there are investment protections in place to protect retail investors from getting dumped on with equity, and that does not exist with tokens.
Yeah, the like hypothetical crypto dream is that like, oh well, all the whole thing will be a DAO, and the tokens will give you governing rights, so it totally is like stock in that regard. And it always it's meat space where it always becomes complicated, where you have this DAO, and you can have the most sophisticated smart contract in the world, but what it's where it hits the real world, where products actually have to get shipped and people have to do what they say they're going to do, and there's not really a way to make the smart contract govern what happens in the real world. And so it ultimately boils down to like, is your claim to this ownership stake legally enforceable? And if it's not legally enforceable, then it's not really worth much.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Shitcoins are bad. Moral of the story.
Yeah, buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin. Is there anything else you want to hit on? Any other topics?
I think it seems like a pretty good way to wrap it up, actually.
Sweet. This was fun.
It was. Cool. Well, if you want to, give us any feedback, you can boost in. Or actually, this will go later onto a podcast. We have an ATL BitLab podcast feed, so we'll upload this to there. You can boost us on Fountain, leave us a tip in Bitcoin if you enjoyed what you're listening to. Let us know what you want to hear next time. We'll do BitDevs Radio Hour again sometime.
Yeah. So the current plan is at least we're going to do this after BitDevs. We'll use the topic list to inform this discussion or to curate topics for this discussion. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, we might occasionally, outside of the regular BitDevs meetups, just have topics that we want to, have a conversation about on the internet. So we'll see how it goes. This is an experiment, but hopefully a fun one.
Cool. Send us your questions.
All right.
Give us your money.
Yeah, exactly. Send us your questions. Send us your zaps, your boosts, all of that. I'm gonna try and do a cool show outro thing here and all of that. Is it playing? Is it? Nope, it's not. Okay. Well, anyways, catch you later, everybody.
Thanks for joining. See you next time.